Hey guys, it's Joe. I hope everyone's doing great out there. Coming at you tonight with my horror year in review. I am going to be giving you my top 5 worst and best horror movies of the year. Now, I gotta say, this year was a pretty solid year for horror overall. Um, I didn't have a YouTube channel last year, and I did my horror lists on Facebook and so through other social media, and I had a really tough time last year just coming up with a top 5 horror movies I liked last year. This year, much better. I easily could have made a top 10 list this year. It was actually tough this year to pick my top 5. There were a few that I was a little bummed that didn't make the top 5 that I thought deserved some recognition. But I wanted to, I like to keep it at 5. Maybe next year I will up it to a top 10 list if, the horror genre keeps rising. I think it was a vast improvement over 2014. I think 2015 was a pretty solid year for horror. That is promising, and let's hope it continues on in 2016. So, without further ado, we will go into I'm going to do my worst 5 first, and then my best 5. But just before that, I'd also like, since this is a horror year in review, I would just like to acknowledge some of the horror legends that we lost this year. It was a tough year for horror fans as we lost Wes Craven and Betsy Palmer, Gunnar Hansen, just so many horror legends. I believe this year was Christopher Lee too. We lost, so a lot of great horror legends that was lost this year. Very sad, but just wanted to acknowledge some of the key horror legends we lost this year, and I'm sure I'm forgetting some. But let's just remember all of the great horror legends we lost this year. All right, so let's go here, guys. I got my list written down right here so I don't forget. So we will start with the worst horror movies that I have seen this year. So we'll start at number 5. So number 5 is The Green Inferno. Now, this movie was just this movie makes the list because it was just so hyped. And I expected so much more out of this movie, and it really disappointed me so much. This was a tough year for Eli Roth, honestly. He has really seemed to have dropped off, and it's just been tough for him. I think, M. Night Shyamalan has been getting a lot of criticism lately, and some people think he made a comeback this year with The Visit. I thought it was a semi-comeback. It wasn't my favorite movie of the year, but it didn't make my worst of list. But I did say The Visit in my review. If you go back and watch my review on that, I did say that the last 40 minutes, 35 to 40 minutes of The Visit was really, really good. And if Shyamalan kept that up throughout the rest of the movie, it probably would have made my top 5. But going off on a tangent about The Visit, but back to The Green Inferno, guys. So that makes my number 5 on worst of the year list. Just due to the fact that Eli Roth made some really strange choices in this movie. His use of comedy in it just did not work for me. And, there were things about people fainting in the theater, and whatnot, and it just wasn't all that shocking to me either. I was just looking for a really good cannibal movie, and Roth just tried to do too much with it, and it was just very disappointing. All right, number 4 on my list is not an Eli Roth directed, but an Eli Roth presents movie, and that movie is Clown. Now, Clown is basically about a guy who puts on a clown mask and a clown costume and can't get it off. I'm not going to go too detailed into plot summaries and whatnot in these reviews because we'll be here all night. But Clown, another one that just really disappointed me. A movie that had a great premise but did not execute very well, and it was just really disappointing. Number 3 on my list is the Poltergeist remake. This movie just did not need to be made. They tried to make it, and it was a complete failure. Nothing new in this movie. The actors really seemed to just didn't want to be there. It basically looked like they were there for a paycheck. Besides Sam Rockwell, I will say Sam Rockwell tried, but he didn't have much to work with. Just seemed like a money grab. The soul of the old Poltergeist was not in this movie at all, and it was just so disappointing, so bland, so just unmemorable, and just very disappointing all around. Just a movie that did not need to be made. And I have no problems with them remaking horror movies, but make it worthwhile. Try to do something different with it. Do not make a carbon copy, because we've already seen it before. And this was, a pretty much a carbon copy remake. But they didn't do anything better, and they didn't make it any more interesting. And the cast just seemed to have phoned it in. So, very disappointing. Number 2 on my list is The Gallows. Now, I was very harsh on this movie if you go back and watch my review, but for some reason, I gave it a 5 out of 10, which immediately after recording that, I dropped it all the way down, I think, to like a 3 out of 10. This was just an awful, awful movie. Nothing about it really that was enjoyable. The characters were all completely unlikable, and they were supposed to be likable, I believe. And a completely forgettable movie. A movie that, after I saw it, I basically completely forgot about it until I started looking up the movies I watched this year and remembered it and remembered how just awful it was. But just not a movie worth your time, not worth a watch. I don't think that movie got many favorable reviews at all from what I had seen. But that is my number 2. So that leaves us to number 1, our worst horror movie of the year. A runaway for me was The Human Centipede 3. The absolute worst movie I've seen this year. Not just horror movie, the absolute worst movie I've seen this year. I can't believe I sat through it. I made it through the whole thing. And it was just completely awful. Now, don't get me wrong. I actually enjoyed Human Centipede 1 and 2. I did not think they were bad movies. Human Centipede 1 I actually really enjoyed. Human Centipede 2, it was what it was. But this one was just almost like a complete middle finger to the to the audience watching this movie. Just completely mindless, dumb, just stupid. That's all. I don't got much more to say about it. It was just the worst horror movie I've seen this year, and I would not recommend watching it at all. Don't even watch a minute of it. Do not waste a minute of your time. I wasted 90 minutes of my time, and I am very upset about that. All right, guys, so now let's get to the good stuff. This is my top 5 best horror movies of the year list. So let's go with number 5 here. Number 5. Actually, you know what? Let's give some honorable mentions first before we get into our top 5. Because like I said, I could have made a top 10 horror movie list easily this year. So these are a few movies that just missed making my top 5 and really deserve some recognition that I think you guys should check out. So first one I'm going to go with is Goodnight Mummy. Now, Goodnight Mummy was a really solid horror movie. Excuse me. A movie I think that is absolutely worth your time. It is a foreign horror film, so I will give that caveat before you see it. If you are not into foreign horror, or don't like reading subtitles, this may not be for you. But it was a very interesting story. It had a nice twist to it. Some people said they saw the twist coming. I did not. But I'm not going to give anything away. I just thought it was very well done, very well shot, and very well executed. The next movie I'd like to give an honorable mention to is What We Do in the Shadows. Now, this movie was fantastic. A excellent horror comedy about vampires. One of the best vampire movies that has come out in the last 5 years, if not the best vampire movie that's come out in the last 5 years. It is hilarious, it is a fun watch, and it is a great time. Highly recommended. Last movie I would like to give an honorable mention to. This one is free on Netflix, so don't waste. If you have Netflix, go and watch this, even tonight if you want to. It is an excellent horror movie. I don't think it got a theatrical play at all. The only time I ever heard about it was on Netflix. It was recommended by a friend of me, and that movie is called Last Shift. This movie is fantastic. It just missed making my top 5. I mean, this movie has, don't get me wrong, it has flaws, but it is a great, great movie, guys. And this movie, I mean, by the skin of its teeth, just missed my top 5. So I can't recommend checking out Last Shift enough, guys. It is a great ghost story. Has very creepy atmosphere throughout, builds up tension, has a nice little twist in it, too. And if you're into like the Manson family and stuff like that, it has kind of some plot points have to do with a Manson family style cult, which is like super interesting. But a really creepy, well done horror movie, low budget horror movie, independent horror movie, which very important to support independent horror, and one I highly recommend checking out. So guys, let's get to the really good stuff now. My top 5 horror movies of the year. Number 5, we have another great horror comedy, and that one is Deathgasm. Now, Deathgasm is such a fun ride from start to finish. If you are a fan of metal music, you will absolutely love this movie. And I am a fan of rock and roll metal music, and I'm not a massive metal fan, but I like metal. If you're a massive metal fan, this might become one of your favorite movies ever. I am a just rock fan in general, and I absolutely love this movie. It is such a fun ride. The gore in it is fantastic. I felt like it was a throwback to 80s slashers and just good gore. Reminded me of a lot of Dead Alive, actually, or Brain Dead. Just a really fun movie, guys. Highly recommended. Number 4 on my list is Crimson Peak. Guillermo del Toro's newest horror movie. Just a really well done movie. Very well executed by Del Toro. And the cast was fantastic. And a great plot. And just really, really well done. I really love the atmosphere in this movie. Never found myself bored. The characters are super interesting. And just a movie that is absolutely worth your time. All right. Now we get to my top 3, guys, horror movies. Number 3 is Creep. Now, Creep is a very interesting horror movie. It is found footage. It was made by the Duplass brothers. Of course, if you know Mark Duplass from The League fame, he struck a deal with Netflix to make, I think it was like a trilogy of movies, and this is the first one out of the trilogy. And it was absolutely fantastic. Now, I gotta say in advance, guys, I am a huge found footage fan. I know a lot of people are not into found footage, but I love found footage horror. And this is one of the best found footage horror movies I have seen in a very long time. Perhaps my favorite found footage movie after the Blair Witch Project. That's how much I loved this movie. It is just, there's only two actors in the, I think it is actually only 2 actors in the entire movie. Just so simple, but just so well done. Just fantastically executed by these 2 actors. The tension just builds and builds and builds in this movie. I felt myself on the edge of my seat a lot of the time in this movie, and I absolutely loved it, guys. I highly recommend it. It is another one you can catch on Netflix. So if you have Netflix, I highly recommend checking out Creep. Number 2, guys, is Krampus. Now, Krampus was highly, I was highly anticipating Krampus, and it did not disappoint, I gotta say. Krampus was a fun ride, once again, from beginning to end. I was just going in looking for a very fun creature feature movie. I was not expecting it to be super creepy, super scary. There are moments, of course, of creepiness and scariness, but it has also includes a high element of comedy too, and really reminded me a lot of Gremlins. It had a Gremlins feel. The movie was an absolute blast. The creatures in this movie are amazing. Krampus is amazing. All Krampus's minions are amazing. The cast is fantastic. They acted the hell out of this movie. They took it. You can tell they took it seriously. With lesser actors, this movie might not have been as good. I gotta say that because that's how good I felt like the acting was in this movie. And Michael Dougherty, I gotta say, very excited to see what he's gonna come up with next. He did Trick or Treat. Now Krampus. Can't wait to see what he comes out with next. So, guys, that leaves us with our number 1 horror movie of the year. And for me, it was Ex Machina. Now, some of you guys might say, Ex Machina, is it horror? I think absolutely it is horror. I would classify it as horror sci-fi. Kind of like Alien. And Ex Machina was without a doubt my favorite horror movie of the year. Fantastically acted, fantastic story. Once again, very simply done. Only 3 actors, I believe, in this movie, but you never find yourself bored. The tension in this movie, you could cut it with a knife. And you'll actually recognize the 2 main actors in Ex Machina because they just became even bigger stars in the new Star Wars The Force Awakens movie. Poe Dameron, I believe is his name, Poe from Star Wars, and was it Hux, the general or whatever? I don't know. I don't remember their names, but the 2 main actors from Ex Machina are in Star Wars, which when I went and saw Star Wars, I was like, oh, those guys were in Ex Machina, which I thought was very funny. But Ex Machina, guys, just such an awesome movie, excellent. Can't recommend it enough. My favorite horror movie of 2015. But I did review all of these. I believe I reviewed all of these movies with the exception of maybe Deathgasm. On my channel this year. So if you want to go back and see more detailed reviews on all these movies, highly encourage you to do so. You'll get better plot synopsises and everything in more detailed reviews on those. So that is it, guys. That is my top 5 and bottom 5 horror movies of the year list. So what did you guys think? Do you agree? Do you disagree? I know a lot of people are going to crucify me for not putting It Follows in my top 5, but I gotta say that was a movie that I did not buy into with all the hype, I gotta say. Maybe it was just, I thought it was a bit overhyped and felt that it did not belong in my top 5. But let me know what you guys think. What was your favorite horror movie of the year? What was your least favorite horror movie of the year? I really want to know. Would love to discuss. What do you think of my list? Did you like it? Did you hate it? Let me know in the comments down below, guys. I hope everyone has a wonderful new year. And that is it. So I hope everyone has a great night, and we'll see you all real soon.